Hello, creative people. Happy spring. Welcome to Creative Conversations. My name is Hala Citron, and I'm so happy that you're here. I am owner and founder of I Am Creative, and I am on a mission to expand the definition of creativity beyond a pencil and a paintbrush and to empower people, especially adults, to own their talents that come in so many different forms. So, just to give you a little bit of a background, this podcast was born from my company, I Am Creative, and it's the perfect space to talk to people that have different jobs, hobbies, and interests with all different kinds of stories and perspectives that create such rich conversations around three questions. One, how do you define creativity? Two, how do you incorporate it into your life? And three, why do you think that it is important? And then we have a free-flowing conversation, and then we see where it goes. So my inspiring guests have varied from real estate brokers, parenting coach, lawyer, doctor, chef, and so many more. And by sharing their stories, the intention is to expand. I'm sorry, I just got distracted. Is to reinforce again and expand the societal definition of creativity and reinforce that when you give yourself permission to play, explore, and express yourself daily, you will feel more empowered, connected, and dare I say, happy. So, my inspiring guest for today, which I am hoping is going to be jumping on very soon, and I'm about to do her intro, but I'm going to let her know. There she is. Okay. So, my inspiring guest today is Brigid Holder, and she has a mission to share the stories of at least 180 women to allow others the permission to change their circumstances. Brigid is the founder and CEO of the Art of Grace Publishing House and is an international best-selling publisher and author. Woohoo! Through writing, she says, we are creative. Then we can release past trauma and grant permission to others to do the same. I am so happy and grateful to have Brigid in this space. Welcome, Brigid.
Hello, Hollis. Good morning. It's very creative way that you are doing your podcast too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, but you are amazing for, I have to say, so Brigid is in Australia and I am on the East Coast in the US, so it's 3 p.m. here and it is 6 a.m. there, so you are a rock star.
Well, normally I'm up at 5 a.m. and we launched the Intuitive Friday and I only got 4 hours sleep. So last night was a long sleep and I would have loved to sleep in, but we planned this, so up I get.
Oh, now I feel a little bad, but I'm very grateful that you're here.
I tell you what, it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be alive, Hollis, having a book launched and going to number one in, I had said 4 countries, but I woke up to the news that we went number one in Germany as well. So 5 countries across the world. So pretty darn awesome.
I am so freaking happy for you. Yes.
Yeah, it's so exciting.
Well deserved. So I just read that little bit of a blurb on you, but before we jump into it, why don't you tell us a little bit more about who you are, kind of a little bit about where you came from and what's going on?
So I think for years I struggled to find what it was that was my thing. I've been through, like my husband and I have a traditional business that has been basically there for the whole of our youngest life, 12 years. It's been there for 17 years, but for 12 years I have worked in the business, and it is, it's a great business, but it never lit me up. And neither did any of the jobs I had before that. And I think that that's where I struggled for a long time until I found, I joined a multi-author book and contributed a chapter. And when that happened, I sort of, dabbled in the idea, well, I could probably do this. But then I went, what, I probably can't. That self-doubt comes in. And I think that even being the manager of over 400 staff, I was a general manager of a national organisation here in Australia, and I thrived on being the leader, but I didn't love the work. And it was a traditional business as well. And I think that when I found the publishing house, it's like, it doesn't feel like work anymore. And I finally realised that saying that they say, find what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And that's how I feel now about life and my business and publishing house. And, the authors are just amazing. And
yeah, it's a pretty incredible feeling, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I can totally relate to everything that you just said. That you're doing your thing. It was the right thing to do, or it's what and then gratefully, when you get that awareness and those opportunities, and you actually act on it and get past that terror barrier, the fear, and you jump in and do it, it's true. It's like when you're doing what you love, it's like you're not working a day in your life.
And I guess I really should have listened to myself a lot sooner, because my intuition always told me where I should go and what I should do, not should do, where I should go and the path that I should be following. And I would just knock it on the head all the time with that fear. So,
yeah. But it's so natural. It's really natural. And I remember those times, like when I was a teenager and stuff would happen. And I remember my mom saying, she'd say, well, it wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't the right time. And that was annoying as hell to hear. I mean, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Now.
He's supposed to like me, and he's supposed to, or I want to be able to do this. And she said, it just wasn't the time. And in growing older and growing into myself and all that, I'm like, yeah, now I get it. It's true.
Yeah, it is. That's so true. Your mum was right. Smart woman.
She really is.
Right.
She is, and I'm grateful. But before I move in, and I want to say two things. One, here you're talking about your intuition, and then this multi-author book that you just put out is called Intuitive. So since we're here, why don't you tell people a little bit about, obviously it's pretty self-explanatory, but you can tell a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, Intuitive Knowing Her Truth is full of women who now stand in their power and really trust their intuition, so much so that it's just a part of who they are. The reason I wanted to share that book was because I am 49, and at 48 I decided this was the book that was going to be the first multi-author book out of the Art of Grace Publishing House, to allow other women the opportunity to stand in their power and hear the stories from 28 women who have gone through trauma, tragedy, loss, despair. And some of them are just normal stories where they've learnt their lessons from, but they all stand in their intuition. And it is a powerful book to be able to give others permission to stand in their own power as well.
Yeah. It's such an important message. And I think people are so much more open, right, to this information and being aware. Before, not too long ago, I think it was even still considered like a woo-woo kind of topic. And I think that, within the past few years, and especially now with all that's been going on, with people having so much time to solitary time with the same people, but then also connecting to people in different ways, that there's just been a lot of time to get to know ourselves.
Yeah, I really agree with that. That 12 months of living life a different way for most of the world, it's really taught people to slow down and go within a bit more, and that it's sort of pushed forward, I think, the time frame as to when this might become more mainstream discussions. And one of the girls actually said we sort of got on a bit of a celebratory call with whoever was available, and one of the girls said, I feel like I've come out, like it feels like I'm coming out of myself. And another one said, yeah, we're so woo-woo, we've come out of the closet with our intuition.
I love that.
Yeah, I know. So it's quite funny because to us, that's just the way you talk. You know, we're 28, 29 women who speak this way all the time and, you know, go within, and that sort of talk was something that I would never have had probably maybe 8 years ago. And but now it's just like that's how I talk, and it's normal to me to talk like that and talk about going within yourself and thinking about your thoughts and you know that sort of stuff. Whereas 8 years ago, I would have thought that that was woo woo myself and hippie like, and you know, it's just you have so many judgments around things. If you're more open, you can be more connected, not only to yourself but to those around you.
Yeah, totally agree. And yeah, I'm thinking about it. It's when you get to that point of hanging out with that tribe, hanging out with those people that get you, that are a higher vibe, that are, you know, of a similar thinking, but enough to expand you, then
Yes.
you get used to this kind of conversation. But then when you realize sometimes you're in a newer setting and then you start talking and you're not always around those people, then you realize, oh, it is really thinking in a different way, you know?
Actually, Hollis, I just, when you said realised, then I just realised that you got a world exclusive, knowing you were the first to know that we went #1 in 5 countries.
It's true. Woohoo! So here on Creative Conversations, we were the first to release that information. How special are we?
Oh, dear. I literally had a conversation with Carla, who um, is out flying the German flag for us, and she messaged me. I think it would have been 4 a.m. my time, but I didn't get the message till I woke up, and I literally had a conversation with her just before I got on here and said, "Go tell the other authors."
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah,
I feel
it's
very
pretty
special. So thank you. And I truly am so happy for you. It's incredible. It's,
yeah, I
I'm
really
sure,
appreciate that.
something that can't be explained exactly in a feeling.
Yeah, true, true. That is true.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dive in. So I want to acknowledge anybody who's on live. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. Please feel free to put any questions or comments in the chat, and we will see them. So thank you. So before we dive into the 3 questions, I'm going to do a quick would you rather. And yeah, so here we go. So Bridget, would you rather, if you were stranded on a desert island, would you rather be alone or would you rather be with someone who talks nonstop?
Alone.
That was a very quick answer.
I did actually. My 12-year-old did pop in my head. He does talk nonstop when he's awake till the minute he goes to sleep. Talk, 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 talk. And I did consider having him there, but I'd rather be alone.
It was a consideration, but nope.
Yeah, no.
I got you. I got you. Okay, so let's dive into these questions. So the first one being, so how would you define creativity?
So I always thought I wasn't creative, and until I wrote in a multi-author book, and when I saw my piece in a book, I was like, I created that. And then I realized that creativity comes in very many different forms. And I started looking at my life when I heard about your podcast name. I started looking at my life thinking, I'm creative in more ways than I think. Like I get creative in how I convince my children how to participate in looking after the house. And I get creative when I am cooking. And I was creative when I have written in books. And, you know, so to me, creativity is just a part of what you do, not in the terms of how I used to see it, which was you had to be an artist or you had to be, um, you know, somebody who put works out that other people could admire. And I realized that, you know, we're all creative. It's just in a completely different way that I see creativity now. Because, you know, writing to me is such a creative outlet now. And I do a lot more of it since I joined my first book back in, I think it was 2019,
Mhm.
early 2019. And yeah, that's how I see creativity. So it's not, that's not a really great definition, but it's not the norm either. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And actually, you just stated the whole mission of my company. So thank you. Woo!
That is so good. I'm so glad.
I mean, you really did, because that's my whole tagline. It goes beyond a pencil and a paintbrush. And the
Yeah.
whole point is to empower people to see that what they have to offer, what their voice is, what their talent is, what they have to say, how they show up in the world is their expression. And expression is
Yeah.
creativity. When you
Yeah.
look up the word creativity in the dictionary, it's the formation.
I
It's
I
the
had to hold
formation.
myself from doing that, Hollis.
It says it's the formation of an idea or an object.
Ah, wow. Well,
So
I didn't know that.
we're doing that all the time. I mean, there are some other,
Exactly.
it'll say three different definitions, but that's the one that is my definition that shows up in the dictionary. It's the
Yeah,
formation of an idea or an object, and we do that all the time.
we do.
But we have this societal definition that, just like you stated, it's creating the works of art, it's creating the dance pieces, it's creating whatever this is that gets seen, that gets judged by a critic, that we can go and look at and say, aren't they the expert in their field? But what I get so excited about is that when people own their voice, they own their power, they own their joy,
Mm.
then they feel happy. Like,
Well, you know what? I just realised that I'm being creative in allowing women to share their stories because it's a different way to share your voice. You don't have to actually speak because there's a lot. There's a number of women in the book who are very shy, and they've said to me on time and time again. They've said, "I want to be able to share my story so that others can see what's possible, but I'm so afraid. I'm so afraid to speak it. I'm so afraid to tell people my story." But writing it on a piece of paper for them was much easier. So it's a creative way to share your story.
of course it is. And
Yeah,
you,
I love it.
but you're creating this space. I mean, you're giving that gift of permission so they can voice their story, so they can feel safe in voicing their story. And
Mm.
you're empowering them. I mean, the power in that for them is, oh my God, like I have something to say. I have validation. I have something to offer to the world. And then all these people that are going to be reading it and feeling all of that. And this is all because you had this idea, which was given to you, the seed that was planted to create this. I mean, you get the idea, and then the seed can be planted and then has to grow. And it's just a matter of, okay, well, there's the idea, but I'm going to put that in the back for a little bit because I'm scared shitless and I really don't want to. Like, I could fail a million times, and why should I do that? That would be embarrassing.
Yeah,
Or we can take it and be like, you know what? Enough. Like, I'm planting this seed and I'm going to have this germinate. It might take 3 weeks or it might take, a year, but you did it.
yeah, 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 exactly. I did.
You did.
I love that. I love that. Thanks, Hollis.
Yeah.
Making me feel good this time on a Sunday morning. It's awesome.
So thank you. Thank you. Seriously. So talk to me about the space, because you mentioned a few times in your bio where you talk about trauma and granting permission. Does that come from a space of a lot of people that you've worked with or have come in contact with?
Yeah, it surprised me actually how many of the authors had suffered trauma, and I I too have suffered trauma in my life, and I think that's where it comes from, is that you don't allow your past, which is often trauma, to define your future.
Mm-hmm.
And showing others that you're successful on the other side is one great way to allow others to release their trauma, because then they can start to look within and start to build their own resilience to what they've been through, and use it as an opportunity for growth. Although it was you're not going to not acknowledge that it never happened, because it did happen, but you're allowing yourself the opportunity to have a better life on the other side of that instead of living in that trauma. A lot of people use the word victim. I don't like that word because I don't think that that's a choice that people make. I think that they allow the outside world to make them that, which is, you know, a way to protect themselves in a sense, even though it's not a great way to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that word trauma, it's, people have different, everybody has a story,
Yeah.
and everybody has experiences, and what one person might not see as a big deal, another person does. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that, there really is a sense in really honoring, people's perspectives and their version of it.
Yeah.
Um, and words have such power when they're written and when they're spoken.
Mm.
I mean, don't you have, I'm pretty much like when I would do a professional development. So, besides teaching in the classroom for many, many years, art, I would do a professional development. So I would go in front of teachers that were either art teachers or regular teachers, general classroom teachers, and talk to them about how to incorporate art into the classroom. And usually my first question would be, how many people have been told that they aren't good at something?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, the hands go up. And this one person in this one particular scenario, he was so angry about, sometimes there'd be the story about that they weren't good at, writing or something, an activity or sports or whatever. But this one person, it's not funny, but he was really impassioned. Like, here he was, most probably in his 40s or something at the time. And he was going back to middle school and talking about a clay class that he had. In art class, they did ceramics, and every piece of his blew up. And he felt like it was a conspiracy. Like, he seriously felt like he was blamed this teacher that
Yeah.
every one of his pieces blew up, and it didn't happen to everybody else. And here I was, bringing in a workshop where we were actually working with clay. And, anyway, the long
The
story,
pressure.
the pressure, exactly. Like, he created, and I was like saying prayers over that kiln. Like, I was just like, please. When that piece came out in one piece through both firings, I was having a party. But but I bring all that up just because of that obviously carried a lot of weight on him.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and it does. And I think that that's, I had a writer in the book who was told all the way through primary school and was actually, she's around the same age as me, and she used to get beaten by her teacher. And she said that he constantly told her she would never amount to anything. She couldn't write. She was bad at English. And, she's carried that with her until this year when she is now a published author.
Oh my gosh.
That trauma for her was something that wasn't what her story was about, but that could be in another book. But she brought
Yes.
that into. She said, "Oh, I really want to do it, Bridget, but I'm not a writer." And I said, "Everybody can write. We all just have different styles. It's not, just because somebody went to college and did journalism and is great at how they write and how they articulate doesn't mean your story is not just as good. It's just written in a different way."
Oh my
So
God, that's so beautiful.
And yeah, and that's one of my joyous moments out of being a publisher, is seeing somebody who believed right up until she's, I'm not quite sure if she's 50 yet, but she's around the same age as me, and
Mhm.
she's, now she's a writer, and that feels so good for her that it feels so good for me. You know what I mean?
So in getting a chance to see her, I mean, I don't know, if did you get a chance to see her through a Zoom call or anything?
No, I haven't seen her, but she actually lives in the same area as I do. She lives half an hour away from me, and that's another big thing for me. I always thought that nobody in my small town would think that they could participate in something like this. And she put her hand up, and that makes me proud too. So I will see her, and I'll be able to see the joy and in her face when I see her. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because what I was wondering in that was like her body language and her stature, how it affects
Mm.
how she's actually standing.
Well, I can tell in the text messages she's sending me from people that have read her chapter, and she's standing a little taller now. I can tell because of the words that she's using when she talks about what people are saying now. Yeah, she even sent me a message and said, "I'm actually going to piss a few people off in this book, and I don't care." And before, she would have cared. She would have thought, oh, I can't say that because people will think. And yeah, now she's standing a little taller and proud of her own story and her journey and her trauma that she went through. And he's happy to share it. So that's to help others, which is great.
Yeah. And
Mm.
it's again going back to creating that space in order, that safe space, because if people don't feel safe and if they don't feel validated, then they won't open up.
Mm.
So I think it's just a matter at times it can feel a little egocentric or whatever sometimes, and it doesn't come from that place. When you realize or recognize that you've created that space, because when I was teaching, it was that idea of the classroom being that kind of a vessel, that kind of a container. And
Yeah.
I taught in a lot of, I taught predominantly inner city, and there would just be a lot of emotions or a lot of things that could potentially be going on. So a lot of
Mm.
emotions going on at one time, a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think at times, like when I'm listening to you, in that you created that container, when I think back at times, I'd be like, at times I tried and I did create that space and didn't always go perfectly, but when it did open up that space for that so much to flow through, it's just an incredible feeling.
Yeah, it is an incredible feeling, Hollis. You're right. It feels really nice to be able to allow that opportunity for people to do it in a safe place. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the second question, which is so we've heard about the book and that, and I'm sure more will come up, but how do you actually incorporate more creativity into your life?
Uh, I think that came back to the realization that, I used to hate cooking. I don't love cooking now. But now I actually worked with a woman who taught me a bit more about my nutrition and hormones, the connection between them. And I've become a lot more creative in how I put more greens, more vegetables into everyday meals. And that for me was a difficult thing to do. Like not eat vegetables, but I grew up on the meat
Yeah.
and three veg on the plate, and that's not really very creative. And my family don't like the meat and three veg, and it was a way for me to be a bit more creative in that I needed to develop ways to come up with family meals that gave the nutrients, but also were tasty. Because
Mhm.
sometimes putting vegetables in things ain't tasty to a 12 and 14-year-old or younger as they were. Mm.
Are you talking about Michelle Aspinwall?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, she's an amazing person.
Oh, phenomenal. Yeah, helped me to no end. Yeah. And the
Yes.
way she works is very creative too, like it's completely different to anybody I've ever worked with. I call her the hormone magician.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so that's one way that I'm more creative. Another way that I'm more creative is so I did a training every week for my authors, and I know other publishers have asked me, "What do you train on every week?" And I'm like, I don't know, whatever comes up, whatever they're asking about, I just get on and train about it. Like it's just that to me is being creative. I don't have a plan, and I won't have a plan next time either. There's certain things that you have to train on, like how to write a bio and how to write a chapter, and what to do after the book comes out and stuff like that. But there's other things that come up throughout the course of being together in a group that you know, do a training on. And I think that creativity is just off the cuff creativity. I don't have a plan for what I'm going to train on when I get on the call, and I just start training.
But what's great about that is, as you were saying, that words that were just popping into my head was spontaneity, openness, flexibility, and forming community.
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
it's not all about us.
No, it's not. And they've actually given me, this group of authors have given me the nickname the book mum. I think I'm going to run with that too. I think I'm going to market myself as the book mum, and because they said they felt that I gave so much of myself to them. It was like they were nurtured and held and carried through this by the book, their mum, and it was for a book, so they called me the book mum. So I think that those words, the spontaneity, flexibility, is attributed to what, as a mother, you have to do anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great nickname to have. And that's what an amazing way for people to actually look towards you, in such an environment, again, where they could feel so vulnerable. You nurtured them.
Mm. Yeah, I did. Yeah, and it's lovely. Another way that I still write in multi-author books myself, so I am contributing to one. I need to have my chapter in this month. Not very good at deadlines though, Hollis. That's my human design though, so it's okay.
We can't be good at everything, can we?
Oh, dear.
I can totally relate. It's the paperwork stuff and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm like, oh, that'll get done. Oh,
The tax date doesn't really suit me. I say, it's like, oh, it'll get done. They won't care. They'll get their money eventually. It'll be fine.
I have flashbacks back to middle school of having to do a project, and
Yes,
I would,
same.
I would have stuff scattered all over the floor, like having a meltdown. And my parents would be like, "When is it due?" I'm like, "Tomorrow."
Yeah,
And they're like,
same.
"Good job, Hall." I'm like, and that's sometimes I find myself doing similar stuff, but with it, I'm much better at it than I was before. But my approach is a lot different now.
Yeah, same. Same. I forgive myself though if so both books that I have contributed to in the past, one went in 2 minutes after the deadline, and the other one went in, I think, 2 days after the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was the whole, Bridget, if you don't have it in, you won't get edited. And I'm like, I don't care. It doesn't worry me. If you're going to give me the editing time as extra, I'm going to take it, even though I know it's due. Like, don't tell me that. Yeah, it's part of who I am. I think I don't. Yeah, there's a list of priorities, and if that's not due until midnight tomorrow, then it probably won't get done until 11 p.m.
It's kind of like what they have in my head. I'm trying to think of the word, and I know it's like right there, but when they define like certain personalities, and there's the ones that are like, well, if you don't have it done by midnight, then you're going to be in trouble. And then there's the ones that are going to have it in like a week ahead of time. And then there are the
Yeah.
ones that are going to have it done like a few days before. And then the ones that are going to have it done a few minutes before. And then the ones that are going to be like, F you, I'll get it in when I get it in. And if you don't be happy with it, what are you going to do? Like, so what? Fail me.
Yeah, that's me. That's me. No, I used to always say, well, I'm not going to fail anyway if I hand it in, and you can't fail me if I hand it in. So
Right.
it doesn't matter when you hand it in, they can't fail you. Yeah, it's funny. Funny how we all work, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. There was one time my daughter was having she had major jaw surgery a few years ago, and they had to break both of her jaws and reset and like all this kind of stuff. So anyway, she's in the healing process. She missed a lot of school, and I went to a tutoring place, and basically to make it short, the woman, I felt so stupid. Like she was asking me questions like, what classes is your daughter taking and what's her grade point average? And I was kind of like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And I got home and I said, do I suck as a parent? Like, like do I not like, am I not like pushing you enough? Am I not involved enough? Am I not? And she's like, what are you talking about? And in my head, I'm thinking, if I pushed her too much, she's the kind to be like, well, I'm not going to do it if you're pushing me. So she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, the woman at the tutoring agency made me feel really bad and she goes, Mom, you know that if you push me, I would just ignore you and do the opposite. I'm like, yes, I do know that.
So you're doing great as a mom. You've
So
figured
thank you
out
for
what she
validating me.
needs. Oh dear, that's so funny.
So yeah, the point of that was just to reinforce that whole thing of you either know yourself or you learn who you're dealing with and how you need to approach them.
That's right. You do.
So, and I
I
could
can't
totally,
even remember what the question was.
it was about how do you incorporate creativity into your life?
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm very creative when I hand things in late. or is that lying?
Well, how about the parenting thing? So, because I think the parenting thing is actually, a lot of people don't really realize that there is so much creativity in the parenting aspect.
Yeah. Well, I hope that my 14-year-old is still asleep and he can't hear me now. So, you've got to become creative when you're a parent. It's almost to the point of coercion sometimes, um, to help you and to help them. Because if you don't teach them skills to look after a household when they leave, then you've done a disservice to them, because they will not have learned the lessons that they need to look after themselves in their own household, or even to those who go away to school. um, it's useful for them to learn how to look after a household, because they've got to look after their space when they go away to school. And it is something that you have to become creative with, because the two different personality types I have in my children, I can see that I have to deal with them differently to get them to do things and be creative about it without it turning into a fight or an argument, or a
Yeah.
challenging situation where you don't want to be bringing up confrontation. So yeah, it's you've got to become creative in how you get them to participate in the household chores.
Yeah, I think that word confrontation is a good one.
Hmm.
That's that kind of word just kind of like jumped right out because yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's like we were just saying and learning how to approach different personalities. Whenever you get into a confrontation, it's either about reacting or responding.
Mm.
So how you're choosing, how you're making the choice to respond instead of that whole reacting. I know when you said that, like with my kids, if I say to my daughter, would you just clean up your room? It's a sty. Like there's stuff all over the place. She's just like, get out, get out of my space.
Mm.
Whereas if I come at it a different way and I'm like, look, babe, we're about to do this. Could you just clean up your room a little bit? Because we need to do this. She'll be like, oh, okay, how about I just finish this and then I'll do it.
Mm. Yeah, there's different approaches you can take, isn't it? And that's being creative in how you get them to participate. And I do the younger one of the two was always saying, "Well, how come you don't just tell him to do it?" And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, because if I just told him to do it, he'd tell me where to go.
Right. Right.
But you don't. That's how you work. You need the younger one. He needs to be just, this is the list, and we just tick things off the list. Whereas the other one is more, yeah, we have to work on that a lot harder to get things done. And it's just the personality type. There's neither's right. It's just different well, I think the younger one's right because it's my style too. You know, we won't go there with the older one. Yeah.
No, but yeah,
Anyway,
it is the personality type, and they don't
mm,
come with a manual.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I think also like I've learned a lot about human design in the past 12 months too, and that's really helped me to understand um, how to communicate with them, and that creativity is a lot easier to create the dialogue that I need to get them to participate, and it's become much easier, much less confrontation since I've learned about their human design and my own. Hmm.
So wait, so tell me about the human design.
Well, I can't tell you because I don't really understand it well enough to tell you. You need to get somebody on your show to talk about that. It's it's really personalities is how I describe it. That's not how they will describe it to you at all, Hollis. But I
Yeah.
really think it's just defining your personalities and being able to understand. So part of my human design is that I'm not a finisher. I don't like to finish things. I like to get somebody else to finish things, which makes me a very good leader because I can delegate that finishing off to somebody else.
Hmm.
And I used to beat myself up about that, the being late for assignments all the time and um, not meeting deadlines at work in my earlier years until I became the manager. I used to beat myself up about that a lot. And then when my human design told me that that was part of who I am, I went, oh, that's awesome. Now I feel even better handing over the ending part. You can't end over writing your own chapter to somebody else, but you can hand over things that are stopping you from writing your chapter to somebody else, and that helps you to get it in, better. So I've only learned this human design since I've done my two books. So, with
Hmm.
this next one that I'm writing in, I'll be able to hand over things and feel good about it, like because previously I would have thought, oh no, I have to do that. I can't give that to somebody else. Yeah. So it just feels so much better and more comfortable in myself since understanding my own human design. And then you have these authorities that rule most of your decisions, and mine's an emotional authority, and that helped me to understand myself too. And please don't ask me to explain what that means because I
No, but
can't.
you do, I think, because what you're pointing out is because I have heard the word used before, um, and I understand it within exactly the context that you're saying. And what's so amazing about it in what I'm hearing, and I hear it in your voice, and I feel that it's a process of owning it as we get older, is understanding who we are. And
Mm,
there are certain ways that we're built. It doesn't mean we always have to, there's expansion, there's things that we can work on, there's things that we can evolve and change. But there are certain things that a lot of things are, we can be pretty hardwired about.
mm,
And it's a matter of, like you said, forgiving yourself about that, and saying, okay, so that's not my strength. Like there's certain things it's like, I don't, that's not
that's
my
it.
strength, and I
Yeah.
don't have to be good at that. Like, because somebody else is good at that, so I can be
Yes.
good at these other things, and then I can pass it off to this other person who's really good at it, and I don't have to learn all of that because they already know it,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
that's okay.
So true. Yeah. So true. That is so true. Giving yourself that permission to accept yourself wholly and completely. Yeah.
There we go. Permission to accept self wholly. I'm writing it down. Because I think, I mean, isn't that's like a huge empowerment thing for me, I can say,
Mm.
is stepping into, how old am I? I think I'm 53. I don't know. I think I'm going to be 54 this year. I don't know. It starts with a 5. but but it's that whole thing of like, it's kind of taken till I was like 51, where I was just like, yeah, like this is what I want to do. I'm more than halfway there. Like, unless I live to be, 100, which would be great if I'm healthy. But it's wanting to get past all that other mind chatter, BSy stuff, and step into a more empowering, feel good place instead of beating
Mm.
myself up all the time about all that stuff I'd feel bad about handing something in late, or not thinking it was good enough, you know?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So I want to acknowledge a bunch of people have jumped on. So thank you so much for being in this space. We are so happy that you are joining us live. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat box below and we will be able to see them.
One of the authors from Intuitive is here and has been since the beginning. Good on you, Kristen.
Yay!
And she would have heard her news too. Congratulations, Kristen. It's very exciting for you.
Congratulations. What an amazing project to be part of. And before we go on to the last question, I wanted to acknowledge too, it's a shout out to Michelle Aspinwall, because when you pointed out about the whole cooking and the hormones, like I am so exactly there with you and can relate to that. And the whole journey of cooking, because it's always been kind of a stressful part for me. My husband, gratefully, is a really good cook. He has a whole show called Ball Guy in the Kitchen. Um, so, so I'm very grateful for him. But he still does certain things where, because he'll do intermittent fasting. So if he's not eating, he'll be like, okay, well, I'm not cooking for anybody else. I'm like, well, damn. So that means I have to come up with something.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh,
But it
dear.
didn't flow very easily. So when you were talking about becoming more creative and Michelle helping you, especially with the hormone aspect of things, which is a whole other thing, I could really relate to that. And it really does make you feel better.
Oh gosh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I never had trouble sleeping, but I think I sleep even deeper now since working with Michelle and eating foods that are right for my constitution. And I think that that's, an amazing thing to come to. There is, if there's guys listening, you won't love this part, but so from the time I was 18 till the time I was 48, I had terrible period pain, and it was awful. And since working with Michelle, I don't even know when they're going to show up anymore because I just don't feel it. Don't
Wow.
feel it at all. And I'm in perimenopause, so it's like, dang girl, why didn't I find you earlier?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
30
freeing, right?
yeah, 30 years of pain and suffering. And the medical way to deal with that was, oh, here, have the pill. There was
Right.
no looking into it any further than that, and that did not sit well with me. And I probably took it for 2 years and then never again. So yeah, just dealt with the pain every month, and that's not something I have to deal with anymore since working with Michelle.
Oh my God. Woo!
I
Congratulations.
know. I know, it totally amazed me. That's why I call her the hormone magician, because it's just, yeah, can't believe the difference. Yeah.
But I think you're bringing up something that can go across so many different topics as well, too. It's kind of like when we just suck it up. We're like, okay, you got to live with it. It's painful. We don't like it, but okay,
Mm,
you got to just
mm,
accept it, and it's just part of who we are, and it's part of what happens.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there's so much in that, allowing, when we give ourselves permission, when we go past that terror barrier of, well, I really am interested in that, but I can't do it. But actually trying it, and yeah,
Mm,
are we going to fail? Probably. Like,
yeah.
it's just part of the process, but it's how you get up and how you keep going. And then
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
right.
so painful.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So taking that leap it feels so good.
It does. Yeah.
So the last question to wrap things up, and we've kind of touched on these things, but to kind of wrap it up and put in a bow on it. So why is creativity important?
Oh, that's easy to answer. It goes back to the art of Grace Publishing House, is giving people a platform where they can share their voice, where they can share their story, so it grants permission to other people to change their lives. And I think that level of creativity is something that also has given release. Well, yeah, Marion, who's in the book, it's given her release. It's given Kristen an opportunity to share her story, and there's no gain in this for them other than to share their story. They're not promoting a business off the back of the book at this stage. They may well in the future, but it's just, that permission for others to change how they live their lives. And I think it's also an outlet, it's one outlet that you can do for yourself. You don't have to involve somebody else. And I think it's important that people spend time with themselves and get comfortable with who they are. No matter how you're being creative, it's spending time with yourself. Like when I'm creating the food, it's with myself. When I'm trying to entice my children, it's with myself. They're involved in it, but I'm the one coming up with the creative ways to get them involved. And when you paint, it's yourself. So it's doing things with yourself. And I like that about writing, is that it's coming from within, and it's being able to share that is a joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that whole point of that you don't have to do it with others, that it's for you. Again, it goes back to using the word permission again. It's granting ourselves the permission. So much of who I work with and what I see is, people going, and I'm too busy. I'm tired. I don't have enough time. But when we say, you know what? I can take 10 minutes. It's like those baby steps. I can take minutes and I can go for a walk, or that's my meditation. Maybe meditation isn't sitting there and closing my eyes, but meditation is just going for a walk by myself, wherever it is, whether it's in a city or if it's in nature, whether it's sitting and writing, whether it's cooking that thing, whether it's exercising, whatever it is, it's giving that permission to be by yourself and liking yourself.
If we don't really liking yourself.
I mean, we should be with ourselves 24/7.
I know, right? You can't leave.
You can't leave.
Can't be alone on that island.
There's
still yourself.
There's still that voice that's saying, it's like, when they say, would you be friends with that inner chatter? Like, would you choose to have that as a friend? Be like, no. They're mean.
Yeah, well, now I would now. But 8 years ago I wouldn't have. So
yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, Bridget, it has been so amazing chatting with you.
Yeah, it's been lovely chatting with you too, Hollis.
I
could talk to you for hours, I think.
Thank you. Same here. Same here. This is the beauty. We met through the book Awakening, didn't we?
Yeah, so I was meant to be in that book, and I just felt the whole time, as soon as I joined, it was like, oh, why did I do that? That title just didn't resonate for me. Although the book and the stories did, it just wasn't for me to be in that book. So I moved myself to that publisher's next book, which was Visionary. So
okay.
I made the request, and she granted the request. So yeah, that was great. I was able to shift into Visionary. But yes, that's how we met, through that book.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't in it.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm so grateful that we did, because yeah, I agree. Having that space is just incredible. So anyway, can you please tell people how they can find you and connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I like things that are easy, Hollis. I don't like to make things difficult. So you can connect with me on Facebook. It's Brigid Holder on Facebook. And just send me a PM.
There we go. That's simple.
Easy. Yeah, easy. Hollis, I didn't bring up that I am being creative this year, that I am actually contributing to another book that's called The Younger Self Letters. And we're shooting for the stars on this one. We're going to be Wall Street Journal bestsellers, which I'm really excited about. It's getting myself out of my comfort zone and becoming more visible, which is one of the things that I like to teach my authors to do, is to become more visible. And what you do with that is up to you. But yeah, this is really getting me out of my comfort zone. Becoming more visible. every step of the way.
So is this the one, because I saw that online in social media, is that the deadline that's within the month?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk about deadlines, though. Actually, you know what? The publisher hasn't actually told me the deadline. She said, "What are your goals for March?" And I went, to get the thing done. And she goes, "Oh, do you have a date for that?" Like, she's asking me, and I'm like, "Oh, you're being very tricky here." So, that's on the list for March. So probably open on the 31st at midnight.
So she's being very creative and she's empowering you to own that date.
Yes. Yes, she is. And in a way that's kind of frustrating, like, don't make me set the deadline for my own work.
So funny. The head game's involved.
Yeah, it is. It's so funny. So yeah.
Yeah, so you have this letters to your younger self. Is that the name?
uh the younger self letters,
The
I think
younger.
it is. Yeah.
Okay.
The younger self letters. Yeah.
And tell them about you have one or two other book titles coming out, correct?
I do. I have two. Excuse me. I have two book titles coming out. This is my cough is from talking so much over the past week, and on launch day, and yeah, I've had so many conversations. My next two books, multi-author books, are, excuse the French. Am I allowed to swear on your show, Hollis?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, it's called Fuck Motherhood Volume 1. Now, that sounds like, you don't want to be a mother, but that's not what it's about. So, becoming a mother is a life-changing experience that you cannot describe to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I've decided to do is come up with a collection of stories that allows women to see what it's really like. And these are stories of some people telling stories about a different way to parent. Some are talking about how they absolutely adore parenthood and would never want to do anything else and can't imagine what they're going to do when the children leave. Others are stories about dealing with some sort of issue that their child has been diagnosed with, and others are about not liking motherhood. That's my story. I'm actually contributing to that book too. Not liking motherhood and how I dealt with that. There's a very wide range, but it's the opportunity to show mothers that there's so many different ways to mother and that you should take all the advice and do it your own way anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is Hear Her Roar. Now, this is a bit of a bigger project for me because it's about women who've experienced domestic violence and are now successful.
Okay.
I have a vision that this book is going to be funded by the Australian government through a grant to be put into places where women who are in a domestic violence situation now and they leave and they go to these places that can help them to get themselves back on their feet, that the book is there for them as a resource so they don't have to purchase it. And then it's also available in book clubs where the woman who might be in a domestic violence situation is going to book club and she's able to read the book and see what's possible for her. So that, in my hope, is that they will leave sooner and get their freedom and their life back sooner. And that came from because I'm a product of a domestic violence relationship and saw how my mum suffered through it for 17 years of my life. And I, want to offer that opportunity to other women to see what's possible once they leave. So that's a bit of a very passionate project for me. So yeah, those two books are now open for applications, and we've started on motherhood program, and it's very
Wow.
exciting future.
So freaking exciting. And yeah, such important topics that need to be discussed that may get glossed over, but not really diving in and hearing all the different perspectives around it. Again, you're creating a safe space, you're creating the container, and I so appreciate all that you're doing. So thank you for doing it.
Just trying to get creative in how I'm disrupting what's going on in mainstream is what I'm trying to do.
Because it is the disruption. And Yeah, yeah. I mean, I totally get it. I mean, I've started like a new arm of the publishing house as well within what I'm doing, and it's creating that to use that word disruption, the expansion of the definitions, and empowering people to use their voice and
Mm.
share it
Yeah.
to help others
Yeah.
get it out there.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
So whew. Well, we are going to wrap this up. And again, Bridget, I am so grateful to you to be able to really talk to you and then realize that it's now 7 a.m. your time. So again, I appreciate you being on so early.
Yeah, no, thanks, Hollis. It's been great. I've really appreciated talking to you today. It's been fun.
Thank you. And everybody who joined us live, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And this space is all about inspiring each other, connecting, and sharing stories. So please like, follow, and share so we can spread the word and empower each other. So I wish you a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world, and look forward to talking to you again really soon. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye.